Ever walked past a garage sale and thought, nah, just junk? Well, think again. Today, you'll see proof that American garage sales are where the weirdest, wildest, and most unexplainable treasures hide in plain sight. Some of these items will make you laugh, some might make you gag, and at least one will have you asking yourself, who in their right mind thought this was worth selling? Let's dig into the 101 weirdest items ever sold at American garage sales and see just how strange people can get when there's cash on the table. 1. Picture this: a single prosthetic leg standing proudly on a fold-out table. It even had a stylish, though slightly scuffed, hiking boot on it. The seller wanted $50, but here's the kicker. He said he'd knock off $20 if you just wanted the boot. What kind of story ends like that? 2. Someone in Ohio was selling an entire box full of used dental molds. We're talking a complete plaster library of a stranger's teeth, from their crooked childhood years to a perfectly straight adult smile. Why would you save that, let alone try to sell it for $5? 3. A vintage Sunbeam toaster with a handwritten sign that simply read, "Haunted." Apparently, it only toasts bread on one side and occasionally whispers in what sounds like Latin. Yours for $5. Would you risk a demonic possession for the perfect slice of toast? 4. In Florida, a man was selling a standard cooler for $10. The buyer popped it open to check inside and was greeted by a very live, very angry alligator. The seller just shrugged and said, "Oh yeah, forgot about him. He's extra." You just can't make this stuff up. 5. A framed, autographed photo of the actor Nicolas Cage. Except the autograph wasn't from him. It read, "To my dearest Brenda, you were the one that got away. All my love, Gary." We have so many questions. Who is Gary? And why is he using Nick Cage's face for his romantic regrets? 6. One lucky shopper bought what he thought was just a cool-looking rock for $1. After getting it tested, he discovered it was a genuine chunk of raw uranium ore. Yes, someone was selling radioactive material next to a pile of old romance novels. 7. A massive collection of over 3,000 McDonald's Happy Meal toys, all from the years 1992 to 1995. Every single one was still in its original plastic bag. The seller refused to split the collection. It was all or nothing. Imagine having to explain that purchase to your divorce lawyer. 8. Forget buying a whole car. How about just half of one? Someone had a 1998 Toyota Corolla sawed cleanly down the middle, and they were selling only the front half. The seller insisted it was the ultimate conversation starter for a man cave. I guess that's one way to solve parking. 9. A dusty mason jar with a faded handwritten label that just said pickled meats. The rest was unreadable. It sold for $2 to a guy who claimed he was feeling brave. How much money would it take for you to pop the lid on that mystery jar? 10. A perfectly wrapped gift box, priced at $1. The tag simply read, "The element of surprise." When a customer asked what was inside, the seller opened it to reveal it was completely empty. "See?" he said proudly. "You're surprised." You almost have to respect the hustle. 11. A collection of over 500 empty glass perfume bottles, all meticulously cleaned and arranged by size. The seller insisted they were not just bottles but a library of other people's memories and claimed if you sniffed hard enough you could relive a stranger's life. Basically, you are paying for a creepy kind of déjà vu. 12. A binder filled with meticulously collected toenail clippings, all sorted and labeled by date. The owner, a very serious man, referred to it as his keratin archive. Imagine finding this and thinking, yes, this is exactly what my coffee table has been missing. 13. An old, massive rear projection TV being sold not as a television, but as a luxury ant farm. The screen was cracked, and the inside was, in fact, an entire thriving ant civilization. Proof that with enough confidence, you can rebrand anything, even an insect infestation. 14. A beautiful antique music box. You wind it up, expecting a sweet lullaby. Instead, it blasts the full, screeching dial-up internet sound from 1997. It's less of a music box and more of a portable device for inducing flashbacks. The official sound of your patients dying. 15. A gallon-sized Ziploc bag filled to the brim with cat whiskers. The sign proudly stated they were all naturally shed and ethically sourced. Which of course immediately makes you wonder, what exactly is the unethical way to get cat whiskers? Let's just agree not to find out. 16. An authentic, bright red British telephone booth right in the middle of a yard in Texas. The seller had converted it into a fully functional but incredibly cramped personal shower. He claimed it was the ultimate space saver. We think it's the ultimate way to feel claustrophobic while washing your hair. 17. A 5-pound bag containing nothing but the chalky, white conversation hearts from Valentine's Day candy. You know the ones. The seller swore he spent years picking them out by hand. That's not a business venture, that is a documented cry for help. 18. A children's board game from the 1950s called The Sinking of the Titanic. The goal was to race to the lifeboats, and yes, most player pieces were designed to perish in the icy depths. A truly delightful way to teach your kids about historical tragedy and failure. 19. A Tupperware container with air holes. Inside, a single, enormous cockroach named Gregory. The owner said Gregory was his best friend, but he was moving and couldn't take him. He just wanted Gregory to go to a good home. You know, preferably one that's already infested. 20. A painting of a sad clown eating spaghetti, but the spaghetti was made of actual dried pasta, glued right onto the canvas. It was titled, A Carb-Loaded Tragedy. What even? 21. A normal-looking armchair, except the main cushion had been replaced with a fully functional car tire. The seller promised it offered unbeatable lumbar support and a rugged aesthetic. The perfect chair for someone who loves to relax but also wants to be prepared for a sudden drag race. 22. A half-eaten bag of Doritos, sold with a signed certificate of authenticity claiming it was partially consumed by Bigfoot. For just $20, you could own a snack supposedly slobbered on by a cryptid. The real question is, does Bigfoot's DNA make the chips taste better? 23. An entire shopping cart, overflowing with thousands upon thousands of expired lottery tickets. The sign simply advertised it as a bulk collection of broken dreams. The seller suggested using them for an art project. Or, you know, as a $5 monument to spectacular failure. 24. A simple wooden box that contained a single, solitary button. The attached note guaranteed that if you pressed it, absolutely nothing would happen. He was selling the physical concept of futility, and he sold 2 of them. 25. An authentic, full-body C-3PO costume from Star Wars. Sounds amazing, right? The catch. It was custom-made to perfectly fit a dachshund. Just take a second to picture a wiener dog protocol droid. You're welcome. 26. Ever wonder how to get a full-body workout using junk you already have? One seller had the answer: a 10-speed bicycle securely bolted onto a treadmill. You pedal the bike while constantly fighting to keep it upright. It's not just exercise, it's a full-blown survival challenge. 27. They just seem to find me, the seller winked, gesturing towards a perfectly stacked massive pyramid of over 50 traffic cones. For a low price, you weren't just buying lawn decor, you were buying some very questionable evidence. 28. For just $20, you could finally understand your dog. At least that's what the seller of the dog bark translator claimed. After years of research, he'd perfected a device that translated any bark into one of 3 phrases. I'm hungry, squirrel, or I am deeply disappointed in your life choices. 29. One large box. Nothing but left-handed mannequin hands. All of them posed in different, vaguely judgmental gestures. The seller suggested they would be great for hanging coats. We think they'd be great for building an army of unsettling, silent critics. 30. Imagine washing your hands, only to find they now smell exactly like a cheeseburger. One artisan was selling handmade soaps that were photorealistic copies of fast food, from fries to milkshakes. Because nothing says clean quite like the lingering aroma of deep-fried regret. 31. Mounted elegantly on black velvet was a single, framed sock. Its official title, according to the sign, was The Lone Survivor. The seller swore it was the only sock to ever return from the mysterious vortex inside his dryer. A true hero's tale for $10. 32. Some relics of the past refuse to die. They just get weirder. Take the vintage rotary phone from the 70s that someone had cleverly converted into a table lamp. You can't call anyone on it, but it does a fantastic job of illuminating your much more useful smartphone. 33. The seller believed he held the key to surviving the apocalypse. His secret weapon? An enormous glass jar packed with hundreds of plastic sporks. He saw them as the most perfect utensil ever invented. When civilization falls, this guy will be ready. 34. The seller refused to look it directly in its glassy eyes. It was Chester, a slightly terrifying ventriloquist dummy that he insisted hears everything. He even lowered the price, but only if the buyer promised to never mention his name to the dummy again. 35. Do you struggle with uneven condiment distribution on your hot dogs? Of course not, nobody does. But one seller had the hot dog guillotine, a gadget designed solely to slice a hot dog into a perfect spiral for maximum condiment coverage. A brilliant solution to a problem that never existed. 36. By gluing together hundreds of old VHS tapes, one person had constructed a surprisingly sturdy 4-foot-tall bookshelf. The only downside? All the classic 80s movies you might want to watch are literally holding up your Charles Dickens collection. 37. Have a board meeting at 9 and a surfing lesson at 10? This seller had the perfect attire. A full-body wetsuit, custom printed to look exactly like a 3-piece business suit. It even had a little printed-on tie and pocket square. 38. Sitting majestically on a small pillow was a perfectly smooth, gray rock. The sign in front of it read, "Pet Rock, fully trained." When a customer asked what tricks it could do, the seller picked it up, said, "Stay," and put it back down. It stayed. 39. I just couldn't bring myself to throw them away, confessed the owner of a shoebox, filled to the absolute brim with those little plastic bread clips. They were, of course, meticulously sorted by color. That's how a collection begins, folks. 40. Nothing screams patriotism quite like a giant mosaic of Abraham Lincoln's face made entirely from thousands of foil-wrapped ketchup packets. A truly majestic and yet highly perishable work of art. The perfect piece for a dining room you never plan on using. 41. Gleaming in the sun was a series of hand saws, but they weren't for cutting wood. Each one had a peaceful, idyllic landscape painted beautifully along the blade. It was the perfect, jarring combination of Bob Ross's Happy Little Trees and something you'd find in a horror movie. 42. One enterprising nerd was selling a full suit of medieval body armor, meticulously crafted from hundreds of old 3.5-inch floppy disks. He claimed it could protect you from almost anything. Almost anything, that is, except a reasonably strong magnet. 43. Need a place to hide your valuables? One seller's solution was a standard microwave oven. He claimed that no burglar would ever think to look for your jewelry inside a kitchen appliance. Of course, he failed to mention the risk of them just stealing the entire microwave. 44. Just the marshmallows. A gallon-sized bag containing nothing but the colorful, dehydrated charms from Lucky Charms cereal. The seller said he spent months picking them out because he was allergic to the healthy part. That's a level of dedication to sugar that borders on terrifying. 45. Sitting ominously against a garage door was one of the most famously cursed paintings in the world, a print of The Crying Boy. The seller swore his bad luck started the day he hung it up. The price was $10, but he said it was negotiable, especially if you could take it tonight. 46. The sound wasn't the gentle tinkling of chimes. It was a dull metallic clanking. This was a wind chime made entirely from stolen hubcaps from various car brands. The perfect way to announce to your entire neighborhood that you have questionable taste and even more questionable morals. 47. Behold, the muffin topper. Not a pan for baking them, but a special sealed Tupperware container designed to store only the top part of the muffin. For those who believe the best part of the muffin deserves its own dedicated airtight container. A true American innovator. 48. Someone was selling a 4-drawer filing cabinet. The strange part? It was filled with hundreds of instruction manuals for every appliance he'd ever owned, including the ones that broke in 1992. a monument to paranoia disguised as preparedness. 49. On a table sat a brand new, in-the-box solar-powered flashlight. The perfect tool for finding your way in the dark, as long as it's been sitting in direct sunlight all day. The seller honestly admitted he'd never actually been able to test if it worked. 50. For just $50, you could become a doctor. Or at least you could buy a beautifully framed, official-looking diploma from the University of Wikipedia. The fine print noted that the degree was for novelty purposes only. Perfect for anyone who wants the title without the pesky student debt. 51. One small sealed mason jar was labeled Authentic Hollywood Air. The seller swore it was captured on the set of a Brad Pitt movie he worked on as an extra. It looked suspiciously like regular Ohio air, but for $5. Who are we to doubt his story? 52. A vibrant, healthy-looking fern was advertised as the amazing self-watering plant. How did it work? It was a plastic fern sitting permanently in a bucket full of water, proving once and for all that even fake plants can outlive your ambitions. 53. What do you do with 100 golf balls that have all been sliced cleanly in half? You sell them, of course. The seller marketed them as the perfect solution for golfers who only have time for 9 holes. You almost have to admire the commitment to the pun. 54. Someone was selling a single, lonely ice cube tray. It wasn't for spheres or large cubes. This tray made ice cubes shaped precisely like the state of Delaware. The perfect gift for the 3 people who still admit to living in Delaware. 55. I have invented the ultimate universal remote, the seller proudly announced, holding up a long stick with a wad of duct tape on the end, sticky side out. He explained that it was compatible with any device you could physically reach and poke. 56. Ever wished you could apply butter like it was a glue stick? One inventor was selling the butter stick, a plastic dispenser that did just that. He claimed it was the only way to avoid catastrophic crumb contamination on your toast. It's a solution so brilliant, it's stupid. 57. Displayed like prize trophies were hundreds of old hotel keycards. The seller proudly described it as his complete travel history, a catalog of every mid-range hotel he'd stayed at since 1998. A collection that guarantees you'll never be welcome back. 58. One of the most secure mailboxes on the block, according to its owner, was a hollowed-out bowling ball with a tiny, awkward slot cut into it. Watching the mailman try to shove a magazine in there was probably worth the $5 asking price alone. 59. In the middle of a lawn stood a life-sized poodle sculpture, intricately woven from dozens of tangled, beige landline phone cords. The artist called it a tribute to a bygone era of communication. The rest of us would call it a massive, dust-collecting trip hazard. 60. This hose is filled with purified, vitamin-enriched water, the seller claimed with a completely straight face, pointing to a standard garden hose. It makes plants grow twice as fast. A quick glance revealed the hose was, of course, hooked up to the regular city tap. 61. One guy had custom-built a powerful, high-tech slingshot. It wasn't for shooting rocks. It was designed, he explained, for launching wedding rings into the neighbor's yard. He called it the relationship escape device. Some problems require very specific solutions. 62. Unfurled on a table was a meticulously hand-drawn map of the entire neighborhood. It didn't show streets or houses. It showed the exact location of all the neighborhood cats and their preferred napping spots. The seller insisted it was essential intel for avoiding ambushes. 63. Have you ever wanted your entire house to smell like the inside of a brand new Toyota? Someone was selling half-used cans of new car smell, scented wall paint. He said he had to stop because the permanent chemical scent was driving everyone in his house mad. Honestly, no wonder. 64. For sale was a single, gigantic fork, about 4 feet long. It was far too big to eat with. The seller explained it was for socially distanced marshmallow roasting, or possibly for threatening your steak from across the room. Either way, unforgettable. 65. A standard bicycle helmet had been modified with a small, spinning propeller on top. Was it for flying? No. The seller claimed it provided personal cooling, and improved aerodynamics. It probably did the exact opposite, but you have to admire the optimism. 66. Imagine a 10-gallon fish tank, but instead of water and fish, it was filled to the brim with thousands of those little silica gel packets that say, "Do not eat." The owner called it his dry aquarium. The perfect pet for someone who wants zero responsibility and maximum weirdness. 67. One man's trash is another man's chandelier? Hanging from a tree was an old car tire, spray-painted gold with Christmas lights woven through it. The seller called it industrial chic. We call it a spectacular fire hazard waiting to happen. 68. These are X-ray binoculars, the seller whispered conspiratorially. He then proved it by looking through a solid wooden fence and correctly guessing there was a dog on the other side. A dog that was, at that very moment, barking its head off. The art of the lazy scam. 69. A small beige sound machine was on sale for $10. It didn't play whale songs or gentle rain. It had only one sound setting, the constant low-frequency hum of a refrigerator. Finally, you can pay for something your kitchen gives you for free. 70. For just $5, a man was offering custom 5-minute portraits. The catch? He would only draw you as a potato with your glasses, a potato with your beard, a potato with your signature hairstyle. For the first time, you could truly see your starchy self. 71. Tired of blowing on your hot soup like some kind of peasant? One seller offered the Soup Cooler 3000, a tiny hand-cranked fan on a stick you aim at your bowl. It's the perfect way to burn calories while making sure your lunch is just the right temperature. Eventually. 72. Spread across a table like a sacred artifact was a rock. Just a plain, gray rock. The seller insisted that if you squinted and tilted your head just right, it looked exactly like the actor Clint Eastwood. He wanted $20 for what was, essentially, a geological inkblot test. 73. This is not just a chair, the owner explained seriously. This is the sock chair. It was a tiny, low-to-the-ground stool with special grooves on the side to hold your socks open, supposedly making them easier to put on. The pinnacle of solving a problem that no one has ever had. 74. Lying in a neat stack were dozens of expired credit cards, all cut in half. The seller was marketing them as vintage plastic art supplies and claimed their retro designs were highly sought after. Their monetary value was zero, but their value as a monument to bad financial decisions? Priceless. 75. It's a genuine ghost detector, the man insisted, holding up a device that looked suspiciously like a standard stud finder. He demonstrated by pointing it at the garage wall, where it beeped loudly. See, there's one in there right now. I guess ghosts love hiding behind drywall. 76. Behold, the pinnacle of automotive interior design, a coffee table made from a rusty car door. It was balanced precariously on 4 cinder blocks. You couldn't put a drink on it without it tipping over, but it was guaranteed to make your living room look like a junkyard. 77. Ever felt your cold beverage just wasn't communicating effectively? For $3, you could buy an ice cube tray that made ice shaped like punctuation marks, commas, periods, and even a question mark. For the person who wants to add a little grammatical flair to their lemonade. 78. A gentle rattling sound led one shopper to a truly unique wind chime, constructed entirely from empty, plastic prescription pill bottles. Each bottle still had the label with the patient's name blacked out. It's not just a decoration, it's a potential HIPAA violation that clinks in the breeze. 79. It's the no-compromise remote, the seller explained, holding up a TV remote with only one button: volume up. He claimed it was the perfect way to end arguments before they start. It's less of a remote and more of a passive-aggressive weapon. 80. A single, solitary ski leaned against a tree. Not a pair, just one. The sign read, "For the advanced skier looking for the ultimate challenge," or for someone with only one leg who loves snow. You have to appreciate the inclusive marketing. 81. From a distance, it looked like a lovely, fluffy portrait of a golden retriever. But up close, you realized the fur was painstakingly glued on strands of actual human hair. It's the one piece of art that's guaranteed to make every single one of your guests deeply uncomfortable. 82. What do you do with a worn-out cowboy boot? You stuff it with birdseed, hang it from a branch, and call it a rustic birdhouse. The perfect home for any bird who appreciates the faint, lingering smell of foot. 83. A brand new box of 64 pre-sharpened crayons sounded like a great deal for $1. The catch? You opened it to discover that every single crayon in the box was the color white, perfect for drawing snowflakes on a white piece of paper. The artistic possibilities are truly endless. 84. Behold, a collection of sugar packets, but not just any sugar packets. These were all from a single, obscure diner that went out of business in 1993. The seller had hundreds of them. Why? I just liked their logo. 85. My greatest invention, the seller declared, pointing to a standard welcome mat. The self-cleaning doormat. How did it work? A small sign next to it instructed visitors to wipe feet vigorously. He claimed the kinetic energy did all the work. The audacity is almost admirable. 86. Do you ever worry about your computer mouse getting away? One seller offered the perfect solution: a tiny acrylic mouse jail that you place over your mouse when you step away from the desk. He insisted it was the only way to ensure data security and rodent containment. 87. A thick binder, meticulously labeled Napkin Archives, was on sale for $5. Inside were hundreds of different paper napkins collected from fast food chains and diners across the country since 1989. It was a museum of grease stains and forgotten logos. 88. By spray painting a tall stack of Pringles cans gold, one visionary had created the base for a truly unique table lamp. The lampshade was, of course, a slightly stained KFC bucket. It's not just a lamp, it's a monument to processed foods. 89. It looked like a normal fork until you noticed the prongs had been replaced with 4 tiny spoon-like scoops. The seller called it the pea fork, a specialized utensil designed solely for capturing rogue peas. A solution to a crisis you never knew you were having. 90. One very expensive-looking size 14 dress shoe was sitting by itself on a pristine cloth. The catch? It had been completely filled with cement. The seller had no story, only a sign that read, "Your guess is as good as mine, $20. 91. An old acoustic guitar with all its strings replaced by thick, colorful rubber bands leaned against a chair. The seller claimed it produced a unique, percussive tone and was perfect for experimental jazz. It sounded, predictably, like a rubber band crying for help. 92. A man was selling a lifetime supply of dehydrated water. It was a beautifully labeled empty can. The instructions on the side simply read, "Just add water." He sold 3 of them before his wife made him stop. 93. Lying in a box were a set of golf clubs where the heads had been replaced with actual tools: a hammer, a wrench, a screwdriver. The tagline was brilliant: "For the handyman who would rather be golfing." 94. Assorted lids, the sign on the box declared. And that's exactly what it was: hundreds of mismatched plastic lids with no containers to go with them. A box full of false hope and wasted kitchen space. 95. A tiny handkerchief-sized parachute was for sale. The seller earnestly explained it was for safely dropping your phone from a second-story window. He did not offer a warranty and advised against testing it before purchase. 96. It was a treadmill for your fingers. A tiny battery-powered device designed, supposedly, to keep your digits in peak condition for typing or scrolling. The perfect gadget for when you want to look busy while doing absolutely nothing. 97. A single, framed piece of burnt toast sat on a small easel. The seller swore it contained a perfect image of Elvis Presley. When a shopper said they couldn't see it, the seller replied, "You have to be a true fan and at least 20 feet away." 98. One seller had a snow globe that, instead of fake snow, was filled with water, glitter, and dozens of tiny plastic sharks. When you shook it, you got your very own personal Sharknado. Some art just speaks for itself. 99. A large box of pre-disappointed fortune cookies was on sale. The fortunes inside all read things like, "An exciting journey will be canceled. You will continue to be you," and "That wasn't chicken." Finally, some honesty. 100. What do you do with a single, perfectly good rollerblade? You attach it to the bottom of a briefcase, of course. The seller marketed it as the executive's last-mile solution for getting to meetings on time. 101. And for the grand finale, a doorbell that didn't ring. Instead, when pressed, it played a short, pre-recorded, deeply disappointed sigh through a small speaker. The seller said it was the best way to effectively manage visitor expectations. And there you have it. 101 of the weirdest things ever to grace a fold-out table on an American driveway. Makes you wonder, was the weirdo the one selling or the one buying? But here's the real question for you. Which of these would you actually spend your hard-earned dollars on? Or better yet, what's the strangest thing you've ever sold or bought? Drop it in the comments and prove you can out-weird this list, if you dare. And if you enjoyed this trip through the absurd, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stick around. Because trust me, the next one, it only gets stranger.